Good evening. Thank you all for joining us for the 2021 Seminole County Sheriff's Office Memorial Service. I'm Under Sheriff Lou Tomei of the Seminole County Sheriff's Office. Tonight we'll have presentation of colors by the Seminole County Sheriff's Office Police Explorers. Please remain standing for the national anthem sung by SESO Explorer Rose Gardner.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you all for being here. I got to tell you, it feels good to be around other people again to fulfill some of our greatest responsibilities, and that's to make sure that our heroes are never forgotten and that we do all that we can as a community and as a county each and every year. Last year, if you recall, it was a completely virtual ceremony, but nevertheless, we had our honor guard team, and I'm so proud of our explorers and all of the members that come together. Thank you all for joining us this evening. These times are clearly challenging and continue to be a challenge. And I look forward to the day that we can come back, hopefully next year, have our large ceremonial event where we invite members of our community to come and pay their respects and pay their tributes as we typically do. Our heroes deserve the gratitude, and our community is always there and willing to provide that. So thank you all for being here. Nationwide, there are more than 900,000 law enforcement officers that serve with great honor and distinction every single day. They are proud and they are brave. Each and every day they carry out their duties, and they always have this companion, and that is the risk associated with the job that we know so well here in Seminole County. It is a tradition for our agency and law enforcement agencies across the country to come together during the month of May, National Peace Officer Memorial Month, and the week centered around May 15th specifically to pay tribute to those law enforcement officers who gave all. Since the first recorded police death in 1791, there have been, as of today, 24,869 law enforcement officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Every one of these heroes have their names engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Judiciary Square, Washington, D.C. Sadly, all of our families have been there. 9 of these names are Seminole County law enforcement officers or have a meaningful tie to our Seminole County community here. Deputy Sheriff Cleve Jacobs, Deputy Sheriff Robert Moore, Deputy Sheriff George File, Deputy Sheriff Hugh Thomas Jr., Deputy Sheriff Eugene Gregory, Deputy Sheriff Matt Miller, Longwood Police Department Sergeant Carl Stroessel, Florida Highway Patrol Trooper Leroy Bender, and of course Windermere Police Department Officer Robert Robbie German. Although we gather formally each year, I would venture that a day does not go by without the men and women of the police departments and the sheriff's office reflecting on the contributions of these 9 brave and heroic men. Their photos line our hallways. Awards are named in their honor. Their retired radio IDs appear on our agency's lists. Their names are engraved in stone on our local, state, and national monuments. Every single uniformed member of the Seminole County Sheriff's Office wears the Roman numeral 6, a small pin affixed to our uniforms and attached to our patrol cars, constantly reflecting on the heroes and sacrifices that have been made. We are certain that all of our heroes would agree on one thing. Although they've had varying assignments and different backgrounds and different family lives, they worked hard to make our community safe, but they would agree on one thing, and that is that they would want their name to be the last name that is ever arched in stone on any one of our monuments. We remain in constant awe of their courage, commitment, and selfless dedication to the cause of protecting and preserving human life. Unlike other professions, those who embark upon a life in law enforcement know the risks. We know that we may have to put ourselves in harm's way in an effort to protect others. Those who we honor today are truly the definition of a hero. That is just one of the reasons why their sacrifice means so much. It was for a purpose greater than themselves. Again, no clearer and better definition of a hero than that. They were not just colleagues, coworkers, and friends. They were fathers, brothers, siblings, and sons. To the families and loved ones of these deputies, you have always been our family here at the Seminole County Sheriff's Office. Although there's no speech or ceremony that can ease your pain, let the work that we do as a community come together to honor their legacy and their courage and ensure that their work is never forgotten. Warm your hearts with our gratitude. Quite frankly, it is all that we have right now. You know, I reflect on my time here at the Sheriff's Office, and I was just commenting as I walked up that the thing that I missed the most from ascending the ranks is participation on our Sheriff's Office Honor Guard team. It was something that brought me great pride, walking and marching and being there for our loved ones and family members. There's so much more meaning than the 5-point star, than just a piece of tin or shield or people who join our fraternities because they want to be a part of that. It's the legacy. And knowing that wherever you're at, when you see one of those 5-point stars or shields of a police officer, it means something. It means more than just fraternity and one of the greatest organizations that has ever existed. It means that we stand on the shoulders of heroes and giants and fulfill our commitment to ensure their legacy is never forgotten. We quite literally stand on the shoulders of heroes that have given all to protect and preserve everything that is right and wholesome and just. And not go down the path too far, but I tell you, it's, seeing some of the narrative out there that does not recognize the heroic efforts of those men and women that raise their hand and take the oath is disheartening, and is not a true reflection of the service that our heroes give day in and day out. The families have been through so much over the years, but you've always been there for one another, there for our community, and so embracing to the men and women of the Seminole County Sheriff's Office. We love you. We will always be here for you. And again, one of the most important things that we can do is to ensure every single person that comes into our agency knows of that story and knows of that history. And I want to thank Bob Keeling and Rick, if Rick's here, for memorializing through video the lives of our heroes that can last a lifetime. Anytime you look at that, you watch these videos and reflection, and I will tell you, it fills so many gaps that we have had here as a county and community telling the story of our heroes. So I'm incredibly grateful, and I hope that this car, this new marked patrol car, is a positive reflection as it drives throughout our communities and attends our memorial services and drives up and down the outskirts of Judiciary Square in Washington, D.C. when we get back together with the name of your loved one and our heroes on there to ensure that they are never forgotten. God bless you all. I appreciate you, and thank you so much for being here.
On behalf of all of us here today, thank you, Sheriff Lima. I will introduce 4 speakers who will read the circumstances of the 9 fallen law enforcement officers we are recognizing this evening. As a tribute to their lives and legacies, family members and agency members will be escorted to the memorial statue to lay a rose. I would like to introduce Dan Purcell, Chief of Law Enforcement for the Seminole County Sheriff's Office.
Deputy Sheriff Cleveland Jacobs, end of watch, September 14th, 1922. The Seminole County Sheriff's Office was only 9 years old when our first deputy made the ultimate sacrifice. Deputy Sheriff Cleveland Jacobs was shot and killed while attempting to arrest a man for stealing a pair of pants. Deputy Sheriff Jacobs located the man at his home and went to the front door. As he stood out front the door, the suspect opened fire with a shotgun, striking Deputy Sheriff Jacobs in the chest. Though mortally wounded, Deputy Sheriff Jacobs still managed to fire 2 shots at his assailant. Deputy Sheriff Jacobs was transported to the hospital where he tragically succumbed to his wounds. The sheriff at the time, Sheriff Charlie Hand, is remembered to have said that he had lost, quote, one of his best and bravest deputies, end quote. The suspect was arrested, tried, and convicted. He was later sentenced to death and later hanged. Deputy Sheriff Robert O. Moore, end of watch, June 9th, 1975. Deputy Sheriff Moore made the ultimate sacrifice when he succumbed to smoke inhalation and intense heat exposure while rescuing inmates from a fire that broke out in the Seminole County Jail. Deputy Sheriff Moore had successfully rescued several inmates and brought them to safety before heroically re-entering the burning jail, his final time, and yet another attempt to save other trapped inmates. Deputy Sheriff Moore and 10 inmates were lost in the fire, which was intentionally set by the suspect. Deputy Sheriff George File, end of watch, December 29th, 1977. Deputy Sheriff File had just completed a special detail and was in uniform when he entered the Longwood Village Pharmacy to pick up a prescription that evening. His entry into the business was interrupted during an armed robbery taking place inside, and he was mortally wounded by the suspects. One of the suspects was sentenced to death and executed in the year 2000. 2 other suspects were subsequently murdered, and the 4th suspect was sentenced to prison. Deputy Sheriff File was a former New York City Police Department officer who had retired to Florida and was serving as a reserve deputy sheriff at the Seminole County Sheriff's Office. Deputy Sheriff Hugh Thomas, end of watch, March 28, 1989. At 24 years of age, Deputy Sheriff Thomas made the ultimate sacrifice after being shot while responding to a domestic-related prowler call in Geneva. After shooting Deputy Sheriff Thomas, the suspect then committed suicide. He had recently been released from jail and was stalking his girlfriend. Deputy Sheriff Thomas is considered to be a pioneer in neighborhood policing. He was ahead of his time in that he embraced the philosophy of community policing in his day-to-day service in our community well before the concept and philosophy has the label that it does today. Deputy Sheriff Thomas is memorialized in Seminole County through the H.E. Thomas Jr. Parkway, which was named in his honor. Deputy Sheriff Eugene Gregory, end of watch, July 8, 1998. Deputy Sheriff Gregory made the ultimate sacrifice after being mortally wounded while handling an aggravated assault call involving an armed, mentally ill person. Deputy Sheriff Gregory exemplified the spirit of community policing in his day-to-day service. His passing served as the inspiration for the community and the Sheriff's Office to take a proactive role in mental health intervention and treatment, which continues in his legacy to this day. He was affectionately known in the community as Stetson for consistently donning his agency-issued Stetson hat. Deputy Sheriff Matt Miller, end of watch, December 26, 2011. A 28-year law enforcement veteran, Deputy Sheriff Matt Miller served for 5 years at the Longwood Police Department before joining the Seminole County Sheriff's Office in 1988. In 1992, he was one of the first deputies assigned to the agency's newly created motor unit, and he would go on to spend much of his career assigned to traffic safety in the motor unit. On the afternoon of December 26, 2011, Deputy Sheriff Miller was conducting traffic enforcement when a vehicle made a left-hand turn in front of him, colliding with his motorcycle and fatally injuring him.
I'd like to introduce David Dowda, Chief of the Longwood Police Department.
Sergeant Carl Stroessel, end of watch, July 14th, 2007. Sergeant Carl Stroessel was struck and killed by a vehicle on Interstate 4. Sergeant Stroessel's unmarked vehicle was involved in an accident and became disabled in the center lane after he swerved to avoid a chair purposely placed in the roadway. He activated his emergency lights, exited his vehicle, and was standing in front of it when he observed a vehicle approaching at a high rate of speed. As Sergeant Stroessel attempted to cross the inside lane to the shoulder on foot, the driver changed lanes at the last moment in an attempt to avoid striking his patrol vehicle, but tragically struck Sergeant Stroessel instead. The 3 teenagers who placed the chair in the roadway were convicted of manslaughter. 2 of them were sentenced to 4 years in prison, and the third was sentenced to 9. Sergeant Stroessel served the Longwood Police Department with honor for 18 years and previously served the New York City Police Department for 14 years. He is survived by his wife, son, daughter, and grandchildren.
Thank you, Chief Dowda. I would like to introduce Roger Carpenter, Captain for the Florida Highway Patrol.
Trooper Leroy Bender, end of watch, October 25th, 1947. Trooper Leroy Bender was struck and killed by a hit-and-run driver in Sanford while assisting with removing a vehicle from a ditch on West 1st Street. The vehicle's mirror struck Trooper Bender in the head, causing a fatal injury. The driver later turned himself in and was charged with technical manslaughter. Trooper Bender had served with the Florida Highway Patrol for 2 years and was stationed in Ocala and Sanford. At the time of his death, he was 44 years old. He was survived by his wife, May.
Thank you, Captain. I would like to introduce David Ogden, Chief of the Windermere Police Department.
Officer Robert Robbie German, end of watch, March 22nd, 2014. On March 22nd, 2014, the town of Windermere family lost a son, a brother, and a hero when Officer Robert Robbie German was killed in the line of duty. The entire community came together during this tragic time and truly demonstrated why the town of Windermere and Central Florida is such a great place to live and raise a family. Officer German loved being a Windermere police officer, and he was cherished by the residents that he served each and every day. Officer German was also a longtime resident of the Seminole County and graduated from the Seminole State College Law Enforcement Academy. The Windermere Police Department Foundation, Inc. was established in the wake of this tragedy to support, encourage, and benefit the citizens served by the town of Windermere and the Central Florida community. Officer Robbie German is loved and missed by his family, his coworkers, and the town residents. Robbie's legacy and his commitment to the agency's motto, honor, integrity, and service, shall live on through the foundation that we serve. Thank you.
Tonight, we also honor the law enforcement officers and armed forces that have made the ultimate sacrifice. A rose in remembrance of the 360 law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty in the year 2020, 18 from the state of Florida. There have been nearly 25,000 law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty since 1791. The 2020 Fallen Law Enforcement Officer Rose being placed this evening is being carried in place by Deputy Sheriff Lexi Beckman. Deputy Beckman is a recipient of the Seminole State College Law Enforcement Academy Robbie German Endowment established in his honor. A rose in remembrance of Seminole County law enforcement officers who died from natural causes or duty-related illnesses. The rose tonight is being placed by Lieutenant William Rex, a close family friend of Sergeant James LaRue, who passed away this year or in 2020 from COVID-19. A rose in remembrance of the members of the armed forces deployed worldwide that have lost their life in protection of our country. The military rose is being placed by Deputy Sheriff Zachary Little, a preventative medicine specialist in the United States Army. Deputy Little is one of hundreds of veterans who now serve the citizens of Seminole County, Florida.